so I'm going to do a second recording. Brilliant. So welcome back, everybody. Let's have a go at our second half of today's session. Helpful if I shared my screen, wouldn't it? Here, just put in the chat if I'm not sharing what I think I am at any point. End up showing me emails. Okay, let's go to sin and salvation then. Someone remind me, what does sin mean? You told me this earlier. Let's see if anyone can remember. What does sin mean? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, I'm just trying to, everyone in meeting. Have I got people still in the waiting room? Sorry. I mean, doing wrong things, going against God, yeah, disobeying God's will, disobeying God's law, God's will, exactly. I'm just going to see, I think I've got people in the waiting room. I need someone to be my little admin, like Miss Riley has whenever she does these meetings. Yeah, I need to just admit everyone in the waiting room. Give me a second. Great. And then salvation would be? I love you. Being saved, yeah, good. But what does that mean, being saved? Saved from what? Ultimately, would Christians say salvation is about being saved from either, think about that quote, saved from sins, saved from sin, yeah, saved from, I guess, the consequence of sin. Because Christians wouldn't say, oh, now that I'm a Christian, I'm never going to sin again. Obviously, they might hope to never sin, but it's going to happen, say, from evil. What's the consequence, the kind of the end game that Christians are hoping they might be able to go and do? If you think about that quote, God so loved the world that he sent his only son, that whoever believed in him shall not perish. Yes, saved from death, could either be death or hell, if some Christians believe in a literal hell. Some Christians don't believe it's literally a hell. They'll say it's just death. It's like you will die, like it said in Adam and Eve. You will perish, like that quote. Other Christians will say, well, there is a hell where people will be punished, yeah? Whereas all Christians, you could say, pretty much would argue that there is an afterlife opportunity through salvation. How you get it differs, but all Christians would say there is a heaven or a paradise or this hope of eternal life with God. That's quite important, I think, to all Christians' teachings, but how you get there can differ depending on which type of Christian you are. Is that through works? Is it just through grace, through the fact that God can forgive us without us earning it through our works? Is it through following the laws of the Bible? Is it through belief? So there's different ways, but all Christians would say sin leads to us not being able to get to heaven, so salvation helps us get to heaven. Good. So salvation is how being saved by God from the consequences, the eternal consequences of sin. Should we say that? Death or hell, depending on whether you believe in, not you, but whether the Christian we're talking about believes in the literal hell or not. Some would say no. It's just like a sort of symbol, but that's for a different lesson, isn't it? Okay, great. Any quotes on either sin or salvation, or one that maybe has both? A really good short one that you can have. And remember at the top, just because in the Bible it says, a really good one is what we had earlier, obviously. Whoever believes in him shall not. Who can tell me what word is next? Shall not what? Shall not perish. Fantastic. Shall not perish, but have eternal life. Another really good one. Yeah, the commandments are good. Yeah, you could have, there's loads of things you could use for this, because it's, I would argue, perhaps it's the central message of Christianity. There's loads of quotes you could use, but I'm just, it's about which one you select that you think is going to back up what you think. Yeah, you could say the 10 Commandments, do not murder, yeah, or do not lie. That's an example of a sin, if there's a question on sin. You can also have the wages of sin is death. That's quite a good, short, sweet, not sweet, obviously, it's a very sweet message, if it's quite short and easy to remember. And I think it kind of wraps up a lot of the teachings about Christianity in that one quote: the wages of sin is death. So what you have to pay for sin is death. Okay, good. It's a bit grim thing to talk about this morning, isn't it? And I think, yeah, 10 Commandments, brilliant. Or you can have the sheep and the goats. Did you learn the story of the sheep and the goats? The sheep go to heaven, the goats go to hell. That's a really good story to have as well. It's another really, really good one that you can use, but we can do that in another lesson. No. Oh, the sheep go to heaven and the goats go to hell. The sheep, when I was hungry, naked, thirsty, lonely, sick, and a prisoner, you visited me, fed me, clothed me, and all of that. You haven't looked at that? We can do that next time. It's a really good one to have in your pocket again. So Jesus says, whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. That's how people got to heaven. Have you not heard that quote before? I'm going to write this down as something. That's definitely something I can help you with in the future as well, because it's a really good one. It's a quote. But anyway, I don't want to confuse you with that now. Let's stick to what we're doing. So what are two beliefs about sin or salvation? Well, we've said that sin is the... who did the first sin? Was Adam and Eve. Technically, I guess Eve, and then she tempted Adam, technically, but yeah. What else is another belief about salvation, should we say? Oh, that salvation is how Christians believe humans can get to heaven. We will do the story of the sheep and the goats another day. I will come back to that. I think it's really good for crime and punishment, a lot of your themes units. So I think it's a really good one to do in the future. Okay, so what about, why could you argue sin and salvation are the most important Christian sort of beliefs? This is another way you could have it, like, you know, a belief in salvation or a belief in sin and salvation is the most, not a belief in sin, like doing sin, but a belief that there is sin and that there is salvation is the most important belief in Christianity. It's a way they could phrase the 12 marker. What could you argue for that? Should we see? I just want to check the waiting room because sometimes people open back. What do you think? Anyone got an idea? Why could you argue sin, salvation is like the central, most important, more important than heaven and hell, more important than a belief in the Trinity, more important than a belief in the incarnation? Why might someone argue that? So let's see if someone can type while I just send the teachers. Okay. I'm just going to send them the picture of who's here. Anyone? Oh, the silence. Any ideas? Why might someone argue sin and salvation is the most important? Because you could say it's the central message. Yeah, fantastic, Zanera. It helps us understand God's omnibenevolence and mercy and understands God's nature and why Jesus did what he did. So why did the incarnation need to happen? Or why did you know, God do all these actions, the death and the resurrection? It helps us understand like the reason behind the whole story, I guess, really. Christians would argue, no, that's the reason behind the whole of like the Bible and the whole of Christianity. So it helps us understand God's omnibenevolence and mercy. And remember, they like using those phrases as well, don't they? And in the Islam one, they do that, don't they? Salah is the best way to understand God. So using that phrase, understanding God's omnibenevolence, is brilliant, Zinera. The exam board would love that. Also, we're going to say it is the whole reason for the incarnation. Well, I'm going to say, if I just shorten it for you, birth, death, resurrection of Jesus. Does that make sense? Okay. But why might someone say it's not the most important? What could be a more important belief than that in Christianity? If you have to say what was more important. What's more important than that? A belief in salvation and sin, and if I sin, I'm going to go to hell, or I might not exist anymore. Salvation is going to help me get to heaven. What could be more important than that in Christianity? A bigger belief, could you argue? Are you all still here? Hopefully. I hope you're here. Any idea? Like, what could be more important than like sin and salvation? What do I have to believe first? What do I have to believe first before I believe in sin? I don't believe like in doing sin, but do you know what I mean? In the fact that there is a sin. Yeah, I have to believe that there is a God, don't I? If I don't believe in God, then none of that, you know, I'm an atheist now myself. I speak to my mum about this. She's still Christian. she says, oh, Ruth, what are you going to do about sin? What are you going to do about, how are you going to be saved? And I say, well, look, Mum, I don't believe in God anymore. So I don't, oh, that's birth, death, and resurrection. Sorry. I just, because I'm otherwise you'll just be watching me type. Yeah. If you don't have a belief in God in the first place, then sin, salvation, all of that isn't going to have the same significance. So you could argue, some Christians will say a belief in God is more important than a belief in sin and salvation, because that comes from, like I asked you, what is sin? You all said disobeying God. So it's got to be a belief in God and God's laws and God's nature first. Yeah, brilliant. Or you could say a belief in heaven and hell is more important, or the fact that there is an afterlife. You're only going to be concerned about sin and salvation if you think there's an afterlife. So same thing when I talked to my mum. Well, how are you going to get to heaven, Ruth? She said to me. I said, Mum, I don't believe in heaven anymore. So I don't need that belief in sin and salvation for me anymore, do I? Whereas for her, because she has that belief in God and heaven and hell, sin and salvation is also an important belief for her. Does that make sense, everyone? So it's like you are... in those 12 markers, you're sort of often having to pit different things against each other to say why one might be stronger than the other, more important and more significant. And obviously they both are, but it's how you argue it. Great. Belief in God is more important. Or great. Okay. Rather than actually, no, I'm going to show you now. I'm going to think about the 4 markers. All of those were like 1, 2, 5 12s, not the 4 mark questions. So I thought these pictures could help us think about what kind of actions. So you know, we talked about the influence question, the 4 markers being belief in action. So how am I going to see in the life of a Christian or their actions that they have this belief? So what are some of these things here that I might... Can you link that to any of the things we talked about this morning? So let's go back to your mock topics. Ascension of Jesus, Trinity, sin and salvation, even and suffering. Like, what are some of these actions that you could then link to those beliefs? Does that make sense? What are these things that you could say a Christian will do because of... Let's have a go. Why? What? Anyone know what the guy on the bottom left might be doing? I know you haven't necessarily covered this in class yet, but someone mentioned it earlier. Preaching. So what might he have a belief in that's making him preach? So one way a belief in will influence a Christian is through preaching. What might it be? What does he believe in that's kind of... it's that this question's kind of wants you to say, here's the belief and here's how I'm going to see it, or this is how it's going to change sort of the life of that person. Why does it matter? What can I see in their life? So salvation, brilliant, Chloe. So he believes in, well, you could probably pick any of them, but he believes in salvation, that people need to be saved to get to heaven. So therefore he is preaching. So one way a belief in salvation can, one way a belief in salvation could influence a Christian is to preach. That's going to be 1 mark. This is because a preacher wants to help other people get saved because they believe that we need salvation to get to heaven. Brilliant. Let's go for another one. What about top left? What might that person be doing? It's kind of, praying. Fantastic. What might influence that? Why might a Christian pray then, from the things we talked about this morning? Yeah, to get closer to God, for forgiveness. So they're going, but their belief in sin and salvation might cause a Christian to pray because they want God's forgiveness, so they are able to be saved. Fantastic. A belief in Jesus means a Christian might pray because they're following the teachings of Jesus to pray. Fantastic. But remember, prayer will also come up in the other side for practices. I think we'll do that in a few weeks when we do Muslim practices. We'll come back and do a bit of Christian practices because you haven't finished that unit yet. So I think it will just confuse things if I try and do that this morning with you, like the pilgrimage stuff. So prayer could be one way Christians pray is the Lord's Prayer. Fantastic. What about the bottom right? What's that little kid doing? Oh. So one way, a belief in what? A belief in salvation will influence a Christian is through reading the Bible to understand more of God's rules, to be able to have salvation through law, maybe. The top right actually does come back to the sheep and the goats, which is a story that Jesus told about how people get to heaven. And he said, every time he said, you can go to heaven, the sheep, because every time I was hungry, you fed me. Every time I was naked, you clothed me. Every time I was sick, you helped me. Every time I was lonely, you befriended me. Every time I was a prisoner, you visited me in prison. It's really important for crime and punishment. And every time I was thirsty, you gave me water. So that story is that you get to heaven through doing these works. So it's a really good one for salvation through works, through these actions. You've really not talked about it in class at all, the sheep and the goats. Has anyone learned about it? Okay, that's fine. I will, that's fine. It's just a story that Jesus used about people getting to heaven or hell. And those people who do those actions get to heaven. And then he says to the goats on the other side, you are going to go to hell because you didn't do these things. And then they're like, well, when did I see you naked, thirsty, hungry, lonely, sick, prisoner? He said, whatever you did for the least of these people, you did for me. You might have heard that quote before. So that's why many Christians will do things like give to food banks because they're feeding the hungry. They will donate clothes to, like, for refugees. You know, maybe people will be sending, I'm imagining, sadly, that, you know, if this conflict goes on into the winter, that's what I keep thinking about. If this conflict goes on into the winter, the people of Gaza, like, we're going to need to be sending stuff to keep people warm, aren't we? You know, if we're sending clothes to help people in these situations, then people are doing what Jesus said, clothing, not saying naked, but giving clothes to people. People might dig a well somewhere where someone hasn't got water. So you'll see this in action. So it's a really good one. Maybe we can think about it another week, but it's called the sheep and the goats. Actually, I'll type it here. Come on, let's do it, because I think you can use it for so many things. Let's just do this as an added extra. So, okay, the sheep and the goats. Jesus said that, does it say sheep and the goats at the top there? The sheep go to heaven. Go to heaven. Because whenever, and I'm going to shorten it, whenever I was naked, thirsty, what did I say? Lonely, the six, lonely, sick, prisoner, hungry. You basically clothed me, gave me water, befriended me, helped me, visited me, and fed me. But you can just sort of, you don't need to know that back to front. But what you need is the last bit I'm going to give you here. You helped me. And they said, when did we do that? This is the important bit, okay? Whatever you did to the least of these people, you did for me. Okay, it's a really good, because it's really good for salvation through works, because whatever you did, you know, earlier it was like, oh, you've got to believe, then you can get to heaven. Jesus is saying you did these actions, so then you get to heaven. So it's a really good one for salvation through works. So I think that's why it's a good one for you now. It's also a really good one about heaven and hell. It's a really, really good one for crime and punishment. When you do that unit about why should we visit prisoners, you'll see Christians visit prisoners and care for prisoners. War and peace, why should we help people who are suffering in wartime? Because Jesus said. So it's a really good one. So everyone, write down Parable of the Sheep and the Goats, even if you just do this bit at the end, whatever you did to the least of these people, you did for me. And we could talk about it again in the future. I think it's super useful. Okay. I do a hands up if you've got that written down. Great. Fantastic. So you can use that for so many answers. And the people who go to hell, I'll just add it in just so that you've got it. The goats go to hell because they didn't do that. And they said, well, when did we see you, Lord? Well, whatever you didn't do for the least of these people, you did not do for me. So it's like Jesus is saying, That's why this is such a good one for influence, because many Christians, that teaching will influence them to then go and do many actions that they do, because they, Jesus is saying you must go and do these things. It's not just about like preaching, make disciples and all that. You've got to help people. So many Christians will do this. Great. Fantastic. Okay. Back to my script then. We have, that's fine. Let's not do that. That's okay. So let's have a go then at planning an essay together on something we have talked a bit about, but I think we could do this together on my essay planning tool. So hopefully you can see, does it now show? Actually, I'll take the link. Can everyone go in the chat and take this link and open up this website? And it should look a bit like this that's on my board. And you can maybe do a thumbs up when you're done. And it's not going to give you your name, it's going to be like a random name, which is great. It's just going to give you a character. I'm Orange Cat. Great. Has it worked for everyone? Does it come up like this? Does it show? Hopefully it's showing my board for you. I'll get rid of that for a minute, actually. Let me just check what I'm sharing. And then the way this works is, hopefully it's still showing that for you. Has everyone managed to get in? Yeah? The way it works is you add, if you to agree with something, you go the green one. So you're always agreeing or disagreeing with the one above you. So you can agree or disagree with that statement by writing something yourself. Is everyone in there? Hopefully you'll start to see some things come up. Maybe someone, is it showing you something different? Put in the chat if it's showing something wildly different. And I heard there was even a chat function in here, but I can't see it. So I'll do the first one as an example. Suffering as a cause of the fall is the best way for Christian to explain why God allows evil to happen. So I'm going to say here, it shows that suffering was not part of God's plan, so therefore it's not God's fault, but humans. Like that. Have I lost you all? Oh, you're all just busy typing away. Hopefully some things will. And then you can write reasons for and against on the different sides of it. You don't know what to put for cons. So why would someone disagree with it? Great. So what about suffering as a what about suffering as a cause of our free will now, not Adam and Eve? Maybe this is too tricky. No, I think we can do it. Anyone else got any? What else could we say? Good. God is omnipotent. He has the power to stop evil. Fantastic. I'm going to put a quote. You can also just add I'm going to add a quote to this one. I'm going to say the Bible. Maybe we should have done the essential one. It might have been easier. We could do a different question. I just thought, what do you think? What else could we say? Well, we've got quite a few here. I'm going to say another pro, suffering happen. Suffering as a cause. Oh no, not a cause of the fall. As a consequence of the fall. Oh, missed marks. As a consequence. That's what I meant to say, wasn't it? Naughty missed marks. Because of our free will. God is omnipotent as a power to stop suffering as a test on others. I'm going to say here, Job in the Bible is the better way to understand evil, suffering in Christianity. Consequence of the fall is the best way Christians are most. Many Christians believe we are born with original sin. Maybe we could try a different question. Many Christians believe we're born with original sin. from Adam and Eve. Suffering is a test. Good. And humans would be to blame because of evil, because of free will. And I'm going to say here, does that mean God is not omnipotent? Does everyone manage to write something? I should have started with an easier one, maybe. What else can we say? And look, the reason I love this is because, look, if we do that, it shows us our argument, look. What else could we say? Suffering as a consequence of the fall. I'm going to put here, this is when sin entered the world. All this. And here I'm going to say not all Christians actually believe it's literally true. Like that. What do you think? Any other ideas? What do you think is, do you think it is better or not? Sorry, do you think it is the best answer? Like original sin, Adam and Eve, that's the best way to explain suffering? Or do you think that for Christians, a different one is better? I think I started with quite a tricky question for us today. What do you think? Have a look. What do we go? And then what you can do, even if you're not typing any points, is you can vote on the ones that are in there and decide what you think is the strongest ones. What do you think are the best answers on there? Have a go at voting. Even if you haven't written anything, have a go at vote. Which one do you think is the best? Like if you had to write an essay on this, which would be the best? Suffering is a test on others. What about okay, let's take a vote. I'm going to say that. Oh yeah, good. People are voting. This is one. In Judaism, if someone converts, which isn't very often, but does happen, then they can go to something called a mikveh, which is like a ritual bath, and they have a complete immersion underwater and then come back up again. I only learned that recently, as a link to do with like why maybe Christians have baptism in water. I don't know if you knew that. We can link it to baptism, can't we? Okay. Yeah, it does. It takes years. It's not the same, like you don't have the same like kind of evangelism process as you do in Christianity, but some people do, and you can have this thing called a mikveh where you go under this water and come up. I just find that absolutely, I just find it fascinating that, you know, the early Christians would have known about that ritual in Judaism. Okay, let's have a go at another one of these with a more straightforward question. Give me a second. I'm going to make a new one. Let's go for something really good, I think, and I want everyone to have a go at it. How confident does everyone feel about salvation? No, let's do the Trinity. It's the best way Christians to understand God's image. God. Yeah, let's do the Trinity. It's the best way for God to understand, Christians to understand God. We're going to have a go at the Trinity, and then we'll do some Kahoot before we go. Give me a second. Just give me a second. I'm making a new one. And then these are available after. Oh, just give me a second. These will be available afterwards if you want to have a look at them. Sometimes people like go back, even like when the exam comes around, you might be like, oh, we did that. And you can come back to this link, you see. That's why I was thinking of making a Google Classroom. What I'll do is I'll make it and I'll put an invite in the CPSHE one so anyone can join. The time went so fast. Oh, what, this morning? We've still got 20 minutes. Oh, I thought you were like, all probably thinking, oh, when's it going to end? Okay, standard. I'll just do anonymous. Or should we do standard so I can see your names, or do you prefer it anonymous? Let's keep it anonymous because then, yeah. Okay. Okay, great, good. So we're going to do a second one now. This one is going to be the Trinity is the best way for Christians to understand God. So we will keep that alive and kicking, but I'm going to give you a new one now in the chat. Enable instant access. Great. Okay, good. Hopefully now you can have a go at this one. Let's try this. Actually, during half term, I came into school and did a film interview with the people who make this website. So I want to know more about it to tell them, because they have asked me whether people like it or not. And you'll see some students from year 11 were in it. So I'll send you the link when it's made and you can see them in it. We came into school and recorded it. So tell me what you think of the website. If you've got any improvements, they like to listen to me. They like my ideas on how to make this website better. Okay, the Trinity is the best way for Christians to understand God. How about that? You could put a quote, you could put a story, you could put an example. Yes, well done. My first person is in. So helps people know that God has 3 forms. Brilliant. Have a go. Everyone's going to write something in here, because this could be something that comes up for you. I don't know the questions you're going to have. I'm going to say here, it isn't actually mentioned by name in the Bible. Doctrine. Or Miss Begum has said she's very happy to see Maisha and Julia. Maisha and Julia are on here. I'm very happy to see all of you on here, but there you go. Your teachers are very happy you're here. Validators of doctrine. Okay. It might be confusing. Helps them understand God. Yeah, and I'm going to say here, it's a mystery, which is what faith ultimately is. You can't fully understand it with mere human mind. God is so much bigger than what our minds can comprehend. Ultimately, if you really had to push someone onto explaining the Trinity, they would probably say, ultimately, it's a mystery. You can't really get your head around it, because God, how can I get my head around God? You know, God is so much bigger than me. Great. Okay. Oh, looks like that's the winning side. Let me see what I can write on the other side. And you can go to specific claims and argue against them, if you know what I mean. You can go to someone's particular claim and argue. Let's try and get this like super colorful big picture. I'm going to leave it on. Yeah. Can you see they got like a wheel? They call it a sunburst. This is what my favorite thing about this website, because we can see the arguments. So let's see, how can I add a few more columns then? It's not actually meant to, might be confusing. They believe there's 3 gods rather than 1. God as Jesus incarnate is the better. God as Jesus through the incarnation, as this helps us understand the humanity of God and relate to better. And then I'm going to say here, God as the omnis. Do you know what I mean by omnis, yeah? As this shows the power and nature of God more fully. Great. What else should we say? The Trinity, I'm going to say here, it is a central message for most Christian. I'm going to use a fancy word here that hopefully you know, but you might not. Denominations. Anyone heard that word before? Denominations. It's like different groups. Yeah, good. For most Christian denominations, I'm going to say some denominations, but you don't need to know that. I like to give you words you don't like need, but it kind of, you can add to your writing if you know it. You can use it. Denominations. Do not, e.g. Jehovah's Witnesses, have a belief in the Trinity. Save. But then I'm going to argue back against myself, because I want to. Not all Christians would accept that Jehovah's W's are Christian. Okay, good. What else should we say? So have we got any quotes about it yet to say why? It's a mystery. Doesn't mean it's the best way. Yeah, it's the best way. And I'm going to say, helps us understand that God has three. I'm going to say here, Jesus to baptize in the name of the Father and Son and the Holy Spirit. Shows he believed in the Trinity. Does it? I'm going to argue against myself there and say, but he doesn't really explain, doesn't really state one. Right. Look at this. Might be confusing. People might believe there's three gods instead of one. Do we think that it is the best way then? Let's think, yeah. It helps people. It helps people understand. So it helps Christians understand how God can be both. What do you think I might say here? Immanent and transcendent. Bringing in a bit of existence of God. So how can God be on earth as the Holy Spirit? Are we pretty convinced then that actually that is stronger? So you can argue back. Let's see if I can argue back with myself again here. States them by name. Not actually mention my name, they develop later. The Great Commission states them by name. Not by the Trinity. But other quotes seem to support a Trinity, e.g. Spirit of God, e.g. the creation story. I haven't talked about that today, apart from the fall, where John says Jesus was there. Genesis, their spirit hovered. Great, one more minute on this. Let's see how many more points we can get, or you can just vote. If you've kind of written your things, what could you vote on it? Logically wise, the statement is weak. My cat keeps on stepping on the screen. Okay, and my 6-year-old's outside my door begging to come in. I'll have to let him in a minute. Maybe when we play the Kahoot, he can come in. Okay. Great. Any other points here? Shall we vote on it? Which one do you think is the strongest? Oh look, we've got a lot. Was that me arguing myself? So what we can do eventually, when we get used to this, is kind of argue off in many directions for our different points we might give. We'll do the same next week on Muslim beliefs, and then I think we'll do practices together on the last session, Islam practice and Christian practices, because you haven't finished practices yet in class. So yeah. Okay, any other points? So let's just do a quick voting then. I'm going to say, I think this is quite strong, obviously, because I said it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to give myself 3. Great, okay. And any suggestions about this website, put it in the chat if you like it, you don't like it. If you think we could do it differently, I can tell them. They are very open to suggestions. I love them as a company. I think they're brilliant. It's totally free. And yeah, you really like the website. Great. What do you like about it? I'll tell them. I like it because you can oppose people's views. You can think about what you're going to say. And like if you did this sort of thing in class, you couldn't all write something at the same time on the same thing, could you? It's like if we were having a debate in class, like we were all shouting out at the same time, it'd be a bit noisy, wouldn't it? So yeah, great. Oh, brilliant. We'll use it again. Oh, I'm going to screenshot that and send it to them as a company because they're great. I think they're great. It's actually from Berlin in Germany, the person who made it. So I'm like, oh, maybe I could bring a group of students over to Berlin and we could have a little trip there and use it in front of you. Should we try and do that? Okay, great. Okay, so I promised you a Kahoot. Let's do a Kahoot before we go. I will make a Google Classroom for us and you can join or not, it's up to you. And then we can use that as another site for sort of sharing things. And I'm here for you, like whenever, like you can write comments on there if you've say got a homework question. Like last year, people got some things for homework and they just couldn't figure out how to do it, and they couldn't see their teachers in the week, so you can write to me and I'll reply by email. If there's a question you've got to do and you're just not sure how to do it, or if there's if you want links to the website for the exam board, then I can help you with that and help you find like past papers and mark schemes and things like that. So yeah, just use me as a resource. And I'm in France, but I'm here for you as well, in helping you get ready for this exam. So let's do a Kahoot as I promised you. Let me just find it. You can still be writing here. That is brilliant. Okay, give me a minute. Where did I put the Kahoot? That's my question. I think it's going to have all the things we talked about today. Give me just a moment. Is it still sharing the... I don't want it to... Actually, I'll stop sharing my screen for a minute. Let's do this. Just give me a minute while I get the Kahoot ready, everyone. Okay, Kahoot. And I might let my son in while we're doing it and turn my camera on. What do you think? Christian beliefs. Let's see if this is a good one. Again. No. Oh no, actually, no, sorry. I've completely forgotten how to get the Kahoots going now. My Kahoots. Yeah, okay, there we are. It's like going back to lockdown, isn't it, everyone? Christianity quotes. I made one on Christianity, Christian beliefs. Okay, hopefully these are things we all talked about this morning. Yes, okay. So the Kahoot, I'm going to share it here. Is here. Classic mode. Okay. Are you ready, everyone? Can you hear the sound? So are you okay to join? And I'm just going to go and fetch my son so that he can come and watch us while we're doing it. Okay. I'll just leave my door open for him. Can everyone see? Yeah. The website is useful. I'm just going to screen grab that and save it. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. Okay. How many have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, we've got 9 there and 9 here, 10. That might be everybody, is it? Is everyone in? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and 9 there. So there's 3 people, but should we just go for it? I hope it's all things with... Well, you take a guess if you don't know. Is everyone in? Let's just check the chat. Everyone in? Should we go for it? Just tell me now. Okay, let's go. Oh, someone's in the chat now. What have they said here? Okay, I think we're in. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Which word best describes the religion of Christianity? Dualist, atheistic, polytheistic, or monotheistic? Yes, well done, everyone. That was an easy one to start us off with. Fantastic. I don't know who the different people are. Dr. Raven, well done, Dr. Raven. And next we've got, which one is not a Christian denomination? Orthodox, Catholic, Protestant, or Sunni? Yes, well done. So Catholic is a Christian denomination, Protestant and Orthodox as well. They're all different denominations, so groups in Christianity, but Sunni is not. That's in Islam. Great. Who's Dr. Raven? I wonder who Dr. Raven is. Which of the following means God is all loving? There's 20 questions. It's going to take us ages. Let's go quick. Yep. I thought I picked a 10 question one. Next week we'll do a 10 question one. Well done, omnibenevolent. Fantastic. Oh, well done, Silver B. I'll try and go quickly, otherwise we'll be here all morning. Which best describes the Trinity? God is three people. There are three persons in one, or that Jesus is the Son of God. Yeah, the idea. I mean, not three people. Sometimes the word persons is used rather than people, and it's have that thing about one God in it. Is a better definition. Fantastic. Well done, Silver B. Next, what is meant by the term Holy Spirit? Creator of the earth, fully human and fully God, or the unseen power of God at work in the world? Which one do you think is best? Yeah, good. The unseen power of God. The fully God and fully human would be Jesus, if you're thinking about different parts of the Holy Spirit, the Trinity. The act by which God brought the universe into being is known as what? It's known as what? Bringing the world into being, making the world. Story of Genesis. Fantastic. So incarnation is Jesus being born, but the creation is the world being made. Good. Dr. Raven back on top. 7. Which book in the Bible describes the creation of the universe? Which book? I actually just said it a minute ago by accident. Oh, is anyone going to the cinema later today? Anyone going to see a film at the cinema? Yes. Genesis. Fantastic. Okay, good. Next. Well done, Silver B. Silver Beans and Raven are, you know. In Genesis, before the creation of the world, the something of God hovered over the waters. The something of God hovered over the waters in the story of Genesis. So some people say, oh, the Trinity was there from the beginning. Anybody know? The Spirit of God, yeah. In the book of John, it says the Word of God, but in Genesis, because Genesis is in the Torah, so you don't have like things about Jesus in that bit, because that's like the Jewish scriptures that don't talk about Jesus. Jesus comes later. So it's the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. Fantastic. So in Judaism, there's this idea of God being a spirit as well. Which term means becoming flesh or taking human form? Becoming human. What do carnivores eat? They eat meat and flesh, don't they? That's how I remember it. Yes, so incarnation, becoming flesh. So resurrection was when Jesus came back to life after death, but that first initial being born sort of really shows. So when you come to Christian practices, festivals, people say, oh, Christmas is really important because it reminds Christians of the incarnation, Jesus being born as fully God and fully human. Fantastic. Well done, lovely Sphinx up there. 10. Oh, now it's 11. I should have done 10 questions. Do you know which Roman governor sentenced Jesus to death? Actually, oh, no, I'm not going to skip it. No, I won't skip it. I might skip a couple. You don't need to know this, but if you do, then great. It's like an extra one. Just take a guess if you don't know. Yeah, it was Pontius Pilate. Don't worry about that. I might skip. Let's just go. Oh, no, this is a good one. This is important for us today. Which term means Jesus returning to God in heaven? If you don't know this, then go back over what we've done today. Yeah, ascension. Fantastic. Jesus ascended to heaven. I think we've lost 2 people off the thing. Well, let me just check the question for the next one, see if it's a good one. No, let me just, I'm going to skip this one. Don't answer it. I'm going to skip it. Skip. Okay, because of the time. Let's check the next one. Oh, I thought I'd only done 10 questions. What do some Christians believe is immortal? Oh yeah, that's quite a good one. What is it that's immortal for us that will live forever? Immortality of the soul. Fantastic. Right, let's skip a couple because of the time now. Yeah, we haven't, don't do this one. We haven't done this today, don't worry. Okay, yeah. Let's skip a few to get towards the end because of the time, if you don't mind, everyone. That's quite a good one. Tendency to do wrong. What do you think? Yeah, have a go at this one. Which term means that we're born with this sort of kind of carrying it. Yeah, so sin, original sin is the better one, that we're born with it. We're not kind of born blank. We're born with this like sinful nature, basically. Well done, Dr. Raven. What are we now? 16. Let's see if we're going to skip this one. Let's skip that one. Let's skip it because of the time. Hopefully you would have all said grace. Next. Skip this because you haven't done it yet, I think, in class. Death and resurrection of Jesus. You would all hopefully guess that it was Easter. And oh yeah, which term means removing the effects of sin, allowing people to restore their union with God? Which one? Let's go for that one. I don't know if you can hear my son screaming. Fantastic. Atonement, brilliant. Forgiveness is linked to it, but we're able to be forgiven because of atonement. Brilliant. And then last two, don't worry about that. Leave that because we haven't talked about that today. Leave it. And then hopefully the last one will be, let's have a go at the last one, whatever the question. Oh, which key term means rising from the dead? Come on, who's going to rise to the top of the scoreboard with this one then? Tricky, because rising could be one of them, but this is rising from the dead, resurrection. Brilliant. Tricky, because rising is obviously ascension, but that's Jesus rising to heaven 40 days after his resurrection when he rose from the dead. So let's go. We have got Noble Rabbit. Who are these three then? Tell me who you are, Noble Rabbit, lovely Sphinx, and is it Dr. Raven? Oh, so who's that then? Oh, Chloe. And who are the other two? And your lovely Sphinx. And then who's the third one? I'm just going to save it here because I like to show the teachers. Who's that? It is, let me see, who is it? It is Tasnia. So who came first? And what houses are you in? Because maybe I can give you some house points. Okay, so first place was Dr. Raven, Chloe, and you are in, Chloe's in Tull. And then second place was lovely Sphinx. Was Zunera. And you are in, what are you in, Zunera? Oh, Tull as well. And then who's third place? Oh, someone Hobbit or Habit. Who was that? Who was third place? Oh, Tasnia, sorry. And Tasnia. What was it called? I can't see it because I've covered it up now. What was the name of it? Noble Rabbit. Okay, Noble Rabbit is Tasnia. And you are in Chapman. Oh, great. Brilliant. Well, thank you, everybody. I will say goodbye and see you next week. And look out for my Google Classroom and you can join that. And we'll see each other next Saturday if you are free to come. Bye-bye.